Hello there, it's your buddy Phil here. Welcome to my microlearning course in project management to help you ace the PMP exam. Today we're talking about scope management. Scope is very similar to a telescope. When you look through a telescope, what happens? Things become clearer. So in this knowledge area, the PMI presents 6 things. Number 1, plan how to manage scope. It's called plan scope management. Number 2, collect requirements. Now, jumping into collect requirements, this is not where we plan how to collect requirements. We did all that in the first process, plan scope management. In plan scope management, we derived a scope management plan and a requirements management plan. So in collect requirements, we're executing on that plan. Now, while I use the word executing lightly, we're not in the executing process group. We're just literally using the word to say you are carrying out the plan for requirements. You are eliciting those requirements from the customer, the stakeholder, the end user. So stay focused on the planning part. That happens all in plan scope management, okay? After we have collected the requirements and put them into a requirements traceability matrix or some other requirements document, we move into what we call define scope. Define scope is where we are taking those requirements, put them under the microscope and say, what do we need to do work-wise to achieve these requirements? You see, there's a difference. There's a difference between collecting the requirements versus defining the scope. Defining the scope specifically looks at those requirements and understands the work to be done to deliver them. And that's why in define scope, we come out with a project scope statement. Then we get into expanding the view. I call this expanding the view. PMI calls it create WBS. That means you are creating a work breakdown structure that hierarchically decomposes the work that needs to be done, and it becomes very apparent what the project is about. The next process here jumps into monitoring and controlling, and that's called validate scope. Validate scope is usually a head scratcher because there's nothing from create WBS all the way over to monitoring and controlling. And people say, seriously, no, executing work in scope? And the answer is people are executing on the work, performing the scope that was planned. It's kind of interesting to see how people view this. The PMBOK guide is not infallible, remember that. There are gaps and there are little nuances that you have to fill in yourself. So when you have created the work breakdown structure, the next thing that really happens is we understand the scope. It's in the project management plan. In direct and managed project work, the work is being done. People are working to get the project done, and it's based on the work. So I just want you to remember that, okay? After you are done with validate scope, which is where the customer reviews the deliverable and says, yes, good, or no, not good, there could be some rework. There could be some going back to the drawing board, so please keep that in mind. On top of that, after you have finished that validate scope process with your customer actually inspecting the deliverable, there's also an understanding of what you have been doing all along, which is called control scope. Control scope doesn't happen after validate scope. Control scope happens the moment the scope is etched in stone. You begin to control it. You begin to ensure people are not adding extras. And that's pretty much the story of scope management. Plan scope management, collect requirements, define scope, create WBS, validate scope, and control scope. Remember, in the world of Agile, we have an Agile bend to this. We don't go through scope the same way, but scope is accounted for. We're not policing people from adding more stuff. Instead, we manage it through the product backlog. There's a process for it. So just remember, this is but the tip of the iceberg because we've got a lot more microlearning. So if you've enjoyed this, smash the like button, and I'll see you in the next episode. Remember, training exists at hpmexam.com or tinyurl.com/elite PMP. Or if you're getting ready for the CAPM, it's tinyurl.com/elite CAPM. See you next time.